Hey guys, Ryan here, and let's spotlight yet another American Horror Story great. This week, it's Jamie Brewer. Jamie's acting career can be traced back to the 8th grade. She started in theater but got her first big break on TV with American Horror Story. As an actor with Down syndrome, Jamie has been an inspiration and advocate in the community. She's one of the leading spokespeople fighting for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Let's showcase some of her amazing work over the years on American Horror Story, starting at the very beginning. As I mentioned before, television audiences were first introduced to Jamie back in 2011 with Murder House. Here she played the lovable Adelaide Langdon, affectionately known as Addie. Let's start way back in the late 1970s. A young Addie warns twin boys Troy and Brian not to go into the murder house.
You are going to die in there.
Shut your mouth or we're gonna kick your ass.
You're gonna regret it. You're gonna regret it.
What do? You guessed it. See, Addie knows all about the horrors that live inside that house. Now, in present-day 2011, Addie and her mother Constance meet their new neighbors, the poor Harmon family. Addie leaves quite the first impression.
You're gonna die in here.
Who are you? What are you doing?
I mean, again, she's not wrong. See, the Langdon family used to live in the murder house, so Addie is extremely familiar with all of its inhabitants. She spends a whole lot of her time in and around the house playing with some of the spirits. Addie is a bit mischievous, but also doesn't have the best role model as a parent. Like this, Constance making a bunch of sweets for their new neighbors, and then tells Addie to spit in them. She also throws in some ipecac syrup in there as well. And then when Constance wants to punish Addie, she locks her in the very small closet with a bunch of mirrors in it.
Look long and hard.
Constance is the worst. Now, Addie's story soon takes a tragic turn. See, all she wanted to be for Halloween was a pretty girl. Of course, her mom disapproves and a fight ensues. But Constance ultimately gives in and buys her a mask for Halloween. But then Addie goes trick-or-treating and she's hit by a car and killed. The paramedics can't save her life, and in a final attempt to keep Addie's spirit close to her, Constance drags her body towards the murder house. Unfortunately, she's unable to get her onto the haunted property in time. It's a heartbreaking scene. But later on, Constance would seek out medium Billie Dean Howard, played by the great Sarah Paulson, hoping to connect with Addie in the afterlife. Constance begs for her forgiveness, and Addie tells her everything is going to be all right. She's actually happy, she's at peace, and she's glad that her mother didn't succeed in trapping her spirit to the murder house for eternity. After sitting out Season 2's Asylum, Jamie returned to AHS and Coven to play Nan, one of the young witches at Miss Robichaux's academy. Nan's signature ability is Clairvoyance. Of course, the ability to read one's mind, but also put ideas into others' minds. She's the Inception witch.
Stop it. I don't like it. Stop.
We first meet Nan when Zoe arrives at the academy. Alongside Madison and Queenie, the trio plays a pretty horrible prank on their new student. Now, Fiona Good paid particular attention to Nan because of her powers. On a field trip in the French Quarter, Nan is able to pinpoint the exact location of Delphine Lalauerie's body. Fiona would later dig up her body and keep her captive back home. Now, Nan, along with her other Coven accomplices, would soon find new interest in their new neighbors, Joan and Luke Ramsey. Well, specifically Luke, but his mother was not having it.
I forbid you to talk to my son or to set foot in this house again.
I didn't say anything.
Both of you, get out of my house!
Of course, Fiona would ultimately murder Madison, believing that she was the Ascending Supreme. She was wrong. Nan was starting to get concerned because she could no longer hear Madison's thoughts, so she called for the council to come check it out. Later, when Luke comes over to check in on Nan, an army of zombies attack the Coven, thanks to Marie Laveau. Zoe takes charge and saves everyone from a really horrible death. Then the girls get into more trouble. They hope to summon Madison from the dead, but instead awaken the Axeman. Zoe finds Madison's corpse in Spaulding's room, and the girls get down to the bottom of what happened. Nan has to use her powers to gain some insight. Then Nan shifts her focus back to Luke. See, she had a really bad feeling about Joan and is concerned about Luke's safety. Nan decides to walk over next door and check in on him, and then finds him tied up. She frees him and even sneaks in a kiss. Go Nan. As they try to leave the house, Joan stops them and threatens to call the cops on her. But then they're interrupted by Hank Fox, another horrible human, and that's it for Joan. Luke then jumps in front of a bullet headed for Nan, sending him to the hospital. At this point, Fiona doesn't want any more heat on her or the witches, so she has Misty resurrect Joan immediately. Now, you'd think after all this, Joan would have a change of heart. Nope. She forbids Nan and any of the others to come visit Luke in the hospital. But then Nan uses her powers to share a comatose Luke's thoughts with his mother. Through Nan, Luke asks his mom to sing him a song, and finally, all is well. On second thought, apparently Luke spoke with God, and God has some serious concerns about Joan. It's revealed that Joan actually murdered Luke's dad with bees. You heard that right. On top of that, she made it look like an accident. Joan rejects the nonsense coming from Nan, but we all know that she's telling the truth. The witches go back to the academy, but Joan decides to murder her son with a pillow because he knows the truth. Don't worry though, Nan would get some justice. After she found out what happened, she got her sweet revenge on Joan. It involved bleach. Damn, Nan. Cold-blooded. Later on, Nan would use her powers to track down a baby that Marie kidnapped from the hospital. See, Fiona and Marie had planned to sacrifice the child to Papa Legba, but then they changed their mind once Nan finds out, and they decide to make Nan their sacrifice by drowning the poor girl in a bathtub. Those two are horrible, especially Fiona, who just murdered a fellow witch in her coven. Nan's spirit then pops up and leaves with Papa Legba, ready for a new afterlife post-coven. At least she got away from Fiona. But that wasn't the last we'd see of Nan. Jamie would reprise her role as Nan for Season 8's Apocalypse. See, Cordelia seeked out Papa Legba once again in her battle with Michael Langdon, and when she summoned him, she is surprised to see Nan pop up too. Apparently, Nan is really enjoying her time in hell.
Cordelia, long time no see, bitch.
Just a reminder, Cordelia had no idea how Nan died in the first place. This time around, Legba wants all of the Coven witches' souls in exchange to help against Michael Langdon, but Cordelia says no thanks. The deal is off and the two leave. We see Nan a bit later when Cordelia makes a different deal to swap Marie Laveau for Dinah Stevens. Nan informs Marie that she's getting replaced and she no longer needs to keep torturing Delphine and her family. And just like that, Marie pops up in Outpost 3 and gets some of her own revenge. No! But all of this gets erased, of course, after Mallory goes back in time and runs over the Antichrist with her SUV. We then get a glimpse of Mallory's first day at the academy, where Nan shows up yet again. This time, she brings Misty Day back with her, since everyone down in hell is so impressed with Mallory's powers. Cordelia tries once again to convince Nan to stay with the rest of the Coven, but clearly Nan is having a whole lot more fun in hell.
Where are you going?
Back to Papa? I like it down there. How about let's see you play?
I don't understand.
Yeah, I supposed to. Just say thank you.
Good for you, Nan. Jamie returned the following season for Freak Show, though she had a smaller role than previous seasons. Despite that, this might be her most terrifying performance from her entire AHS career. She played Marjorie, the ventriloquist doll owned by Chester Creb. Chester, played perfectly by Neil Patrick Harris, was convinced that Marjorie was a living, breathing person, but in fact, it was all in his head. Jamie portrayed his hallucinations hauntingly.
We need to get rid of her. And the wife.
Let's start years ago. Following the war, Chester's mental health began to deteriorate. While he was away, his wife Lucy started an affair with their neighbor Alice. He became enamored with Marjorie and starts a quasi-relationship with his doll. This is when Chester starts having some pretty violent episodes, some hallucinations, like Marjorie brutally murdering Alice and Lucy. We all know who really murdered them, though. That brings us to present day, when Chester makes his way to Elsa's Freak Show. As a struggling salesman, he's in search for a new gig and wants to join the Freak Show. His up and down relationship with Marjorie is explosive, to say the least. She berates him constantly and has pretty aggressive opinions about those around him. For some reason, Chester also likes for Marjorie to watch whenever he's getting intimate. Speaking of getting intimate, Chester does so with the Tatler twins, but then Marjorie goes missing. In one of the most memorable scenes from the season, Chester hallucinated Marjorie taunting him in the big top. I don't know about you, but I still can't get this shot out of my head.
You do the dirty work.
What are you talking about?
You're a magician. You're gonna saw those twins in half.
She continued to pester Chester about his relationship with the twins and tried to convince him that they will never truly love him, especially when they and everyone else finds out that he's a murderer. Chester ultimately becomes the owner of the Freak Show and prepares to showcase his own magic show. But let's not forget, Marjorie isn't giving up on her dreams of seeing a human cut in half. Enter the golden sawing box. I think you know where this is headed, but the twins are safe. In fact, for some reason, Maggie is the one that volunteers for the rehearsal show. But during the performance, Chester has yet another violent hallucination, and let's just say he messes up big time, as Maggie is accidentally sawed completely in half. All Marjorie can do is laugh.
What the bloody hell?
Chester blames everything on Marjorie and finally builds up enough courage to stop her. He then decides to turn himself in. He brings Marjorie's bloody, wrapped up body inside a blanket and heads to the police station. He proclaims his guilt in killing Marjorie, and the cops stand there in a bit of shock as he reveals his doll.
Send me to the chair!
And that's it. We don't know what happened next, but let's hope that the cops did their homework and connected Chester with the actual murder of Maggie. I mean, he's literally covered in her blood. On second thought, maybe he ended up at Briarcliff Manor. Remember, it was used as a tuberculosis ward, but was turned into an asylum for the criminally insane by the 1960s. Maybe Chester was doing some magic shows at the asylum. Jamie would pop back up for an even smaller role during the 7th season of Cult. In the 7th episode, titled Valerie Solanas Died for Your Sins, Scumbag, we got a glimpse at the origins of the female cult Scum. Lena Dunham made an outrageous cameo as Valerie Solanas.
You are a fool to underestimate the rage of a woman!
Evan Peters does his best Andy Warhol impression, and Jamie Brewer played one of Solanas' followers. We find out a bit about her background. She was abandoned and orphaned as a young child, and we also see just how committed she was to the cult by joining in on a handful of murders of innocent people.
Scum wants to grab some thrilling living for itself.
See, apparently Scum was the Zodiac killer in the AHS universe. But that was pretty much it. Honestly, the biggest bummer is that we didn't get more of Jamie in season 7, and we hope this changes for future seasons of the show. So what's your favorite Jamie Brewer performance over her AHS career? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon.